Madam President, I just returned a couple of hours ago to Washington from Indiana. And over the last several months, as I've been visiting and talking to Hoosiers, I continue to hear concerns about, and I am concerned, frankly, about this widening trust deficit between the American people, at least the people I represent, and I think I can say pretty much across this country, and Washington, and confidence in Washington, confidence that they're getting the straight story, the hard truth. Not a lot of good things have, over the last several months, have come out of either this body or a number of Washington agencies. This trust gap is ever widening as we kind of careen from scandal to scandal and incident to incident, broken promises made by top officials, false statements being made, the latest of which is now this resurrection again of the IRS scandal. Let me say this. It's been said that no agency in Washington is less forgiving than the Internal Revenue Service. No agency in Washington has more power over the American people than the Internal Revenue Service. If there's an agency that needs to be apolitical and not engage in anything that could be even deemed political, it's the IRS, given the power that they have to destroy your reputation, destroy your finances, destroy your business. You see, the way they work is that they determine that you're in violation. You're, in a sense, reversing what is sacrosanct in America, that you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, under the IRS, you're guilty until proven innocent. You're going to have to go out and hire lawyers, you have to go out and hire accountants, and you have to sit down with them and prove that you are not violating their rules. And so that's upside down. You know, one of the founding principles that sets the United States apart from every other nation, almost every nation, and that makes, I think, makes us an exceptional nation, is the First Amendment to the Constitution. And under that First Amendment, Americans are guaranteed, constitutionally guaranteed, the right to organize around issues and values they believe in, and the right to disagree with their government. We look around the world and we see that's not the case in very many places. But in America, that cherished right to take a position opposite of your government, to protest, to organize around that, and to seek changes as a result of that organization. This liberty is part of what energizes and fuels the very spirit of America and everything we stand for. So when a so-called independent agency of the federal government attacks average American citizens for expressing their beliefs, a fundamental trust is broken, and it's very hard to repair. And again, an agency that has perhaps more intimidating power over American citizens, none has more of that power than the Internal Revenue Service. We owe it to the American taxpayer to reveal the truth, the full truth of what has happened here at the IRS and repair the damage of this agency's reckless actions in regard to those who have organized for political purposes to protest, to assert their First Amendment rights, to follow the law and exercise those First Amendment rights without having an agency of the government targeting them and intruding on what they're trying to do. It's clear now that in 2010, when the IRS targeted conservative groups, including one in my home state, for extra scrutiny based on political leanings. And the agency displayed a stunning abuse of power and complete disregard of our Constitution in taking this action. Lois Lerner, the former director of the IRS Exempt Organizations Unit, and the official at the center of this ongoing congressional investigation, refuses to testify before Congress on the advice of her attorney. Yes, she has the right to plead her Fifth Amendment rights to not answer questions, but we're getting stonewalled by the IRS in terms of getting to the bottom of this and determining just what kind of abuse has taken place against the American people. We're trying to reach the truth, but we're being denied that opportunity to reach the truth because those who know the truth refuse to testify under subpoena from the Congress. Last Friday, my House colleagues heard testimony from IRS Commissioner John Costin, and I think hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, about missing emails from Lerner and 6 of her IRS subordinates. Now, isn't this a coincidence? Here is someone that we know has been targeting groups, attacking their First Amendment rights, and in House Oversight Committee seeking to find out whether or not this happened. IRS is denying it, that Lois Lerner refuses to testify. IRS Commissioner that I just mentioned comes in and says this is not true. Okay, let's prove it. IRS asked the taxpayer to prove that they didn't violate their rights under the IRS rules. But when we asked the IRS, can you prove whether that what you're saying is the truth, that you were not targeting these organizations? Oh gosh, we lost all the emails. We lost the evidence. You know, the hard drive, the server crashed, and so we had to discard that. And oh my gosh, all the emails that we could trace back to determine the truth of this, they're lost. They're gone. Every American knows that, you know, forensically you can get into their hard drive and find out everything they ever put in there. Isn't it strange that only the IRS determined that, well, this whole thing crashed, so let's get rid of the hard drives. And now none of the 6, including Lois Lerner, those are all gone. Those thousands of emails that could have led a trace to allow us to find the truth disappeared. What a coincidence. You think the American people buy this story? I mean, it defies incredulity. I mean, it is almost, it would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. The claim that 2 years of emails were completely inadvertently lost, laughable on its face. So no emails, no backups, a crashed server, assertions made long after, members of Congress requested the information. Demonstrates at best a troubling lack of transparency and potentially criminal negligence. After all, the IRS is required to archive these emails by law. But let's put all of this in perspective. The very organization that expects busy, hardworking Americans to maintain meticulous financial records and complete extensive, confusing tax forms each year, that agency can't find 2 years' worth of emails sent by its own employees and most likely destroyed. Even though we live in a day and age where virtually nothing ever disappears from the internet, the IRS wants us to believe that these emails are lost for good, and maybe they are, if they took all the steps that they've taken. So to echo the comments of my colleague, Chairman Paul Ryan, the IRS owes every American taxpayer an apology. But an apology is not enough. We need answers, and we need to find the truth. When this scandal first surfaced, the president promised Americans that, quote, he will work hand in hand with Congress to get this thing fixed. That's his quote. I will work hand in hand with Congress to get this thing fixed. So how are they fixing it? They're sending their employees who were engaged and involved in this up, and they basically either take the Fifth Amendment saying they won't answer the questions, or they say, gee, we lost all this stuff, I'm sorry. Each of our 6 hard drives collapsed, and therefore we can't retrieve any kind of evidence that would prove where they are. I'm not a big fan of special prosecutors. I think giving them that power is not always proven to be the best way to get to the bottom of something. But in certain cases, when there is such clear evidence that the truth is being withheld, that potentially the evidence is being destroyed, that could lead us to a conclusion, it now appears, and the reluctance of, not reluctance, the complete denial of these individuals who worked at the IRS to testify is going to, I think the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this now is to have a special prosecutor with subpoena power to get the bottom of this mess. We need to start restoring the trust of the American people to their government agencies, to their government. And until we get to the bottom of this widening gap, this widening trust gap is going to continue. Appointing the independent investigator would allow us access to federal computer records to determine whether copies of these missing emails can be found on the government IT network. Perhaps they've scrubbed the thing in a way that won't happen, but at least it would allow us an independent assessment of what's going on. We can work to restore trust, but doing so is going to require answers and honesty from the Internal Revenue Service, which we're not getting. Answers and honesty from the IRS. Hopefully, getting that is not irretrievable. Madam Chairman, with that, I yield the floor and see my colleagues are, I think, ready to take the floor.